This is the Last Temptation of John podcast, and as you know by now, I am the Apostle John. I want to welcome you to the show, and this is an audiobook podcast, so if you haven't started with Chapter 1, I recommend you go back and do that now. In today's show, I'm going to continue reading in Book 1, and we'll cover Chapters 16 through 18. Would you believe it was 5 days before I got my next revelation? It's true. Unfortunately, the next vision was about Miriam, but hey, I'll take the time off when I can get it. Hey, John here again, and we're on Chapter 16 of my journal. It's now June 17th, and I'm calling this chapter The Chosen Few. Let's see now. Okay, so back to Miriam. Yeah, I know, having to watch her is always tiring. But as my revelation started to clarify itself, I saw Miriam sitting in a private garden. "It is as you say," Miriam said to her visitor. The man's garments were gleaming with a whiteness so bright that it was otherworldly. Will he survive?" Miriam's voice quavered. "Who can say?" the strange man replied. "The scriptures will be fulfilled. You know this." Now that I got my bearings on the setting, I could see that Mary and her companion were conversing in one of the secluded gardens that are within the grounds of Norbunlinka. For Miriam was a guest of the 14th Dalai Lama, Tenzin Gyatso, and she had been for nearly 20 years. Now, I've always wondered why a Buddhist leader like the Lama would have opened his home for a Bible pusher like Miriam in the first place. And the only answer I could come up with led back to Miriam herself. She always had quite a way with people. In fact, she had this little mental telepathy trick she did that allowed her to be quite manipulative. And I wouldn't have put it past her if she used it on Tenzin a time or two to get what she wanted. Of course, if you prefer a less sinister explanation, then I suppose it's only fair to surmise that Miriam probably didn't ask for much. After all, she only needed one small room, and that was easy enough for Tenzin to provide since he had multiple palaces. And she also needed the opportunity to reside in seclusion away from the world. And again, that was not very difficult for the Lama to assist with, since he himself was also an exile. Yet on this day, Miriam was not talking with her friend Tenzin, for while her visitor today was no less of a spiritual persona than the Lama, he was far more powerful. For this was no mere man, but instead an angel of the Lord, the Archangel Gabriel to be exact. Remember, I told you that Miriam had another source for her knowledge, right? Yes, it's true that while I'm blessed with what I call the sight, and Alan has his book knowledge, Miriam always got her information from Gabriel. Don't ask me why, that's just how it is. "You must leave here soon, Mary," Gabriel advised. "My name is Miriam now." "As you wish, but the fact remains that you will need to leave." And after a pause, "I never understood why you came here in the first place." That makes two of us, I thought as I watched. "The Lord said, preach the good news to all the worlds." "Well, call me old-fashioned," Gabriel replied, "but I still prefer the covenant people. In any case, you did well to assist the Virgin at Fatima, Guadalupe, and Lourdes. And even Medjugorje and Conyers and a host of other sightings you orchestrated were successful in feeding the shepherd's flock. You've done well, Miriam. However, ever since you tried to gather souls from outside the family, it's not been the same. Remember, it's not right to take the children's bread and feed it to the dogs." "Are we quoting from scriptures again, Gabriel?" Miriam practically snarled. "Don't forget the reply. Even the dogs eat crumbs that fall from the master's table. And while I enjoyed helping the Savior's mother minister to Christians, don't forget that I was sent to minister to others too. So many religions in this mixed-up world. I may only be a voice of one calling in the desert, but at least I can try." "Prepare the way for the Lord, is that it? And where the Crusaders failed with violent force, you will use mere words, eh?" Gabriel bantered as if he actually enjoyed getting Miriam riled up about her self-commissioned quest. At last division I was actually enjoying. Meanwhile, the angel continued speaking. "But Miriam, What if these people don't want to give up their beliefs? I never tell them that they must give up what they believe. I seek to understand them. I listen to them. And then, after I have earned the right, I share my own testimony and thereby hope to inspire them to willingly choose our path. And just how many have you converted? Gabriel baited. Ooh, that was a low blow, I thought as I watched. Yes, I was right, because Miriam blushed. I am a sower. My job is to plant seeds. After me, there will come another. I don't know who, and that person will reap. Perhaps even my Lord himself. At that, Gabriel sighed. Mary. And so we come to the real matter again, eh? Yes, we do. But you know I cannot do it alone. I need John and Alan to do their part, and that's why I need you, and that's why I called. Miriam. We have our own battles to fight on the other front. The situation looks grim for us as well, but we rely on the Word, and thus know that we will prevail in the end. I'm afraid you must figure this out on your own. But the beast already has Alan, and John is avoiding me. Tears began to well up in Miriam's eyes as she continued to lament. I pour out my soul to the Lord, and yet I still cannot understand. And reaching over to her desk, she hefted up that large, black, leather tome. Have you seen the Book of Life lately? It's now down to 173,201 names. Miriam, the angel replied softly, it is not good to have zeal without knowledge, nor to be hasty and miss the way. You know as well as I that only 144,000 will experience the rapture on this world. But why? Why only 144,000? Mary asked in frustration. How can God allow so many to be lost? When the sculptor carves a masterpiece, how much of the original stone is discarded? Gabriel waved a weary hand at Miriam. Who cares about the remnants of a block of stone? I'm talking about the souls of good people, living people. Are they really so good? Gabriel asked. They could be if they had the opportunity to know our Lord. How do you know they didn't have the chance already? You know they never had a real chance. It's all been predetermined. And Miriam opened up her book to one of the later pages that still had names on it, as she said, I can turn to this page and I can read these names and know that none of these people will be saved. Look at all these people, all these sheep, they will be lost. Where is the good shepherd who will save them? Did the Lord lie to us when he told us that he was that shepherd who would save us? I don't believe that. And yet I also don't see how any of this can be right. Miriam. We both know you know the answer. Gabriel was frustrated now. Speak the words for yourself and let's move on from this tedium. But Miriam turned away, continuing to resist. I don't want to. And she made an effort to busy herself by closing the Book of Life and placing it back into position on the desk. Gabriel gently pulled her back by the arm. However, he did not speak so softly this time. Say the truth, Mary. Unable to resist the Archangel's command, Miriam finally replied, Ach, it's because of Adam and Eve. It's all because of original sin. Oh, Jesus. Original sin. That's where Gabriel's going with here, I thought. So basically, everybody has to suffer all these terrible things that I described in the book of Revelation because one day, thousands of years ago, a woman took a bite from an apple and shared it with her mate? Seriously? Oh my gosh, this vision is ridiculous. Where's my bottle? You thought you saw me drink before? You guys ain't seen nothing yet. Well, that was a bummer. Let's just say that I wasn't successful in drinking myself into oblivion to end my vision from the last chapter. Apparently, God has learned how to overcome my little tricks a long time ago. But don't think he gets the last laugh. You know, the fact is that visions are no visions. And my hot tub and a few bottles of Jim Beam are always a big help. Let's just say they help to clear up the revelations a bit. Okay, so where were we? Well, looking at my diary here, it's still June 17th, and we're now on chapter 17. I'm calling this one The Great Harvest. Okay, so let's bring on the prophecies. I'm ready for them again. I mean, I may not remember all of them, but heck, who cares, right? Okay, so where were we? Oh, that's right, Miriam. Okay, so My vision was continuing as I watched Miriam break away from the Archangel Gabriel. But why must people 1,000 generations or so removed from Adam still have to suffer for his sin? Is God such a begrudging Lord? Ha! Sing it, sister! She's finally saying something intelligent, I thought to myself. But it was Gabriel who was not amused. Miriam, why must we have this debate so often? You know the difference. The sacrifice of the Christ that he provided was for the ultimate forgiveness of all men's sins. However, the Lord has not taken away free will, and despite forgiveness, there will always be consequences for sin. And before Miriam could interrupt, Gabriel spoke on. This is not to say that only 144,000 will enter the kingdom, and that the others will be barred forever. Just that only those few will be raptured without pain, while the rest will be disciplined for their transgressions. It is a discipline given out of love, and in an effort to teach the wayward about the righteous path. Oh, Jesus. I've heard this whole purgatory argument before, I thought as I watched Gabriel. In the past, I used to buy it, but now it's just hogwash. Meanwhile, Miriam was talking. But even with purgatory as an option, not everyone will make it, will they? Because not everyone will repent and accept. Why does it have to be that way? Even I don't know the answer to that, said Gabriel. Yet understand that the story of redemption goes beyond just this planet, for our God is the Lord of all the universe, every universe. And whilst each universe may have differences, in the end the Lord's goal is the same: to glory in the creation of ever more souls made holy as a result of free will. For whenever a soul freely chooses to worship the Lord, why, all of heaven rejoices. Okay, I realize this is all pretty deep stuff, and if you understand where Gabriel's going with this, great. But if you don't worry about it for now. I mean, after all, when are you or I going to be traveling to another universe? So let's just worry about ourselves, okay? That's hard enough, right? But now the time of truth has come for our earth, right? Miriam concluded. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us be glad and rejoice, Gabriel praised. Indeed, millennia ago your world was sown and cared for. And when the Christ came, he began the process of pruning. And now the earth is finally ready, for only with the pains of harvest can the crops finally be served, which is their true purpose. Such is the case for souls everywhere. None can reach the Lord without the great harvest. And this happens on every world? Miriam asked. Not every world goes through the same life cycle. Oh, be certain that Lucifer and his minions are active in every location, however, not always with the same results. Some worlds never know the stain of original sin. For those souls there rejected Lucifer from the onset, when it was the easiest to resist. And thus they have been in harmony with God for all of their existence, and oh, how those worlds shine. Yet just the same, there are other worlds in which Lucifer's allure was apparently irresistible, and upon those locales nearly all of the souls have been lost. And my God, those are horror-filled, forsaken places. Here the angel paused. Miriam, too, shuddered at the thoughts of those hellish worlds. Eventually I watched as Gabriel found his voice again. And yet, it is worlds like your earth that the Lord takes the most pleasure in, for the balance of power between good and evil is ever-changing, and the final outcome is uncertain, which makes the battle here all the more important. And fixing his gaze ominously on Miriam, Gabriel continued, Do not underestimate the significance of what is happening here, Mary, and do not underestimate the part you are playing. The heavenly host needs you, Mary. Succeed in your mission. Help mankind make the right choice. But how? I don't have the worldly prestige to influence so many, and time is running out. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and your plans will succeed, Mary, the angel reminded. Don't allow the beast to reveal himself to the world, for if he gets the opportunity to glorify himself on the world stage, his allure will be nearly irresistible, and I fear that your earth may be lost forever. And if that happens, you won't be complaining about only 144,000 being saved. We'll be lucky to even harvest 4,000. Oh my, save us, Lord. Miriam clutched her book of life, trying to shelter the names inside. But Gabriel, even if we do stop the beast, what will it mean in the grand scheme of things, beyond just our world? In the end, what happens on this planet will mimic the ultimate story of redemption, only if man realizes the error of his ways and freely chooses life with God. For only then will you be able to reconnect with your true purpose in life, to serve God. Whether they know it or not, it is this form of redemption that all of creation is seeking, even the Dark One himself. Satan, Miriam gasped. I pulled back from my vision a moment because I got to tell you something. Just for you listeners out there, I want you to know there is a force of darkness. Now, you can call him the devil or Lucifer, whatever you want, but he does exist. And if you don't believe me, then it's you who are the fool. Meanwhile, I saw Gabriel talking again. Indeed, Mary, on a grand scale, mankind's tale is a microcosm of Lucifer's, for the end goal of the ultimate redemption is not the destruction of man, and especially not of Lucifer, but instead the Lord seeks to purge Lucifer's evil nature away in the hopes that he will repent of his sins and eventually reunite with God himself. For only when such an event occurs can creation truly be made whole again. Yet whether or when this will happen, who can say? Oh, but this all goes so far beyond me, Miriam lamented. What do my efforts really matter? Can you fathom the mysteries of God? Gabriel asked. You are a part of creation. You are a member of the great play, and your part is critical. But what if I can't fulfill my duty? Miriam asked. What if you never try? Gabriel softened his tone. When you come to the end of all the light that you have, faith is knowing that when you take the next step, either you'll land on something solid or else learn how to fly. Oh, geez. Now, Gabriel didn't just make that up. I've heard that quote before. I think it was coined by a fellow named Edwin Teller. He's taken it as his own. Meanwhile, Miriam prayed, For you, O God, tested us. You refined us like silver, but you brought us to a place of abundance. And yet still she hesitated. That's typical Miriam. At last the angel could take it no more, and so, rising up to his full height, he unveiled his awesome wings as he roared, Enough! Now is the time, I command you. Fly, Miriam, fly! And Gabriel's words thundered so loud that even I was taken aback by the power they held. Thankfully, my vision ended on that note, and I was given a measure of peace. So I turned up the bubbles in my hot tub and sank deeper into the steam. Ah, heaven, the only kind I've ever known. And guess what? It ain't half bad. Hey, you gotta take what you can get in this life, right? Well, John here again, and this is chapter 18 of my diary. I'm calling this chapter, I've Loved You for 1,000 Years. The date is June 20th in my journal, but the events that you're going to witness take place in a time long past, as you'll soon find out. In any case, it's been a few days since I last talked to you, and, as I was here, I was sitting in my rocking chair on my back porch, and I was listening to some Conway Twitty on the radio. I was singing along, and it's not going to be pretty, but you're going to have to listen to it. Oh, somebody's needing somebody the way I do. Somebody's wanting somebody they can hold on to. To be loved by somebody, that's the way it should be. Oh, there's got to be somebody somewhere waiting for me. Yep, it was another scorcher of a day, and I was conspiring against the heat by sipping on a few ice-cold lagers. In this case, Beck's beer, to be exact. Crisp, clean, and refreshing. Why are you so appalled that I drink so much? Don't you know the saying, quote, let them drink and forget their worries, unquote? Look, I'm not making this stuff up. It's in the Bible. Read it for yourself. Now listen, it was about 2 weeks ago that somebody broke into my house, and I still hadn't replaced the TV that was damaged during that break-in. As a result, I was forced to listen to my Philadelphia Phillies baseball game over the radio. And since the game wasn't on for another hour, I was whiling away the time listening to some more music. Naturally, I continued to sing along. Hurtin' inside, going through the emotions, I bellowed out, terribly off-key. It's so hard to live, so many feelings, so lonely, when they've got so much to give. Closing my eyes as the tune came to a close, I raised my glass. Oh, to be loved by somebody, that's the way it should be. Oh, there's got to be somebody waiting for me. But why? Why ain't there nobody waiting for me? I lamented in anger after the song had ended and suddenly flew into a rage. Why is life given to the bitter of soul? For my sin is always before me, and you leave me covered in disgrace. I knew I was being overly dramatic, but I didn't care. Lord, you make me want to eat my ashes as my food and mingle my drink with tears. My days are like the evening shadow. I am alone, and all because of your great wrath. Why? But just then, a force pulled gently against me. But I resisted. No, I will not repent, and I will not be silent. I know I was condemning myself, but I didn't care. I complain at the bitterness of my soul. Why do you, the God of all creation, credit Job's words as faith when he raged against you, yet I remain despised? And I got more frustrated. Damn it all to hell. Damn all of you, especially you, Mary. It's all your fault. And in a flash, I was lost in memories, unwanted memories from nearly 2,000 years ago. Damn rain, I growled as I pulled the shutters closed against the cold. And in my mind's eye, I recognized I was back in the upper room of a rundown apartment building where my friends and I were planning to celebrate the Passover feast that was supposed to occur later that evening. I was also speaking in Aramaic, but for our purposes today I'll translate, since I doubt you speak Aramaic today. Turning to the group, I continued, It's the month of Nisan, for Yahweh's sake. Why's it gotta be so damn cold here in Jerusalem? I thought we were coming to this city to be able to enjoy ourselves. Don't y'all remember that triumphal entry Jesus had just a few days ago? Of course we do, said my brother James. Yeah, well, it's been pretty rotten since then, I continued complaining. Now, there was a large table in the middle of the room, and around this, Peter, my brother James, and a few other men continued preparing the board for our approaching feast. Even still, Peter spoke up next. John, I feel your pain, but calm down. You know as well as I that the Master could tell the winds to cease and the sun to shine if he so desired. Yeah, well, why doesn't he? I opened the shutters again and looked down at the dusty streets below, yearning in anticipation to see him. Another man walked over and placed his hand on my shoulder as I continued searching outside. Don't worry, he'll be here, John. He wouldn't have us do all this and not show up, right? Who knows, Matthew? I pulled the shutters close again with a bang. Ever since Magdala started traveling with us, it seems like she is calling the shots now. I mean, does Jesus always have to listen to her advice? Wow, I guess as I look back and thought about this now, I guess you could say I never really did like Mary. Oh well. Meanwhile, Matthew continued talking. Well, she does always seem to know the right thing to do. I mean, look how the people have responded lately. Why, even the Sadducees are afraid to touch us. But why? How? I countered. I mean, I know Jesus dispelled those demons from Mary, but what makes her so special from all the other countless peons that Jesus did miracles for? I mean, Mary's just a girl from Magdala, for Moses' sake. Why is she allowed to travel with us when Jesus told all the others to go their own way after he healed them? At this point, Andrew came over and joined our conversation.
The answer is because Mary continues to prophesy. Only now, rather than speak in the demon tongue, Jesus believes Mary is speaking the words of Yahweh himself.
Wow, as I thought about it now, I guess I kind of forgot about that. I didn't realize that back then, I was not the one with the revelations. It was actually Mary. And I don't understand why all that changed now, but it is what it is. Matthew smiled at me as he said, "Andrew's right, John, and so far you can't argue with Mary's results. After all, Mary is correct in whatever she sees. I mean, here we are in Jerusalem, man, celebrating the Passover in a place that the Pharisees said we would never be able to come back to. And it's all because Mary told the Master about Bartimaeus' blindness, and that man's parents were so grateful when Jesus cured him that they let us use one of their rental rooms for our Passover meal this evening. For free, man! I mean, even though this town is packed with pilgrims and Bartimaeus' parents could have rented this room for some pretty big coin. Surely this is some amazing stuff, don't you think?" "Don't the rest of us count for something?" I retorted back at Matthew. "After all, most of us have been with Jesus for 3 years or more, and yet Mary's been around for less than a year. I mean, I asked to sit at his right hand and James at his left, and the rest of you practically crucified us for that, and Jesus denied us anyway. Yet Magdalene does whatever she pleases, and none of you seem to care." "Oh, come on, she's not that bad," Matthew replied. "I mean, look at me, Mr. Former Tax Collector. Yet here I am as one of the chosen ones. Mark my words, John, I'm going to write a book about this one day." "Oh, whatever, Matthew, you do that. But I'm serious. What is going on with Mary?"
"Do you think there's a romantic connection?" Andrew asked.
"Unthinkable," I was quick to reply, not wanting to believe what I feared the most. "But would it be so bad if Jesus and Mary did unite?" Matthew asked.
"Surely it would diminish our ministry," Peter surmised.
"I'm not so sure," Matthew countered. "Think about this, friend. We've come a long way under Jesus' direction, but as Judas says, now is the time for action. I mean, the people thirst for change. You can feel it. And with Mary's visionary powers and Jesus' inspired oratory abilities, I mean, we could move forward this Messiah mission project and finally wrest away power from those current usurpers."
Peter seemed to agree with this when he said, "Think of the glory we could all share in if our faction ruled Jerusalem."
"As good as that sounds," James spoke up, "I have to agree with my brother John. We all know that Jesus is the Son of Yahweh, the divine incarnate. There could be no way he would allow himself to be defiled by a woman."
"But he is also a man," Andrew replied. "Surely his flesh has needs."
Okay, this is a note to my readers here. Let me make one thing clear, right? As I read through my journal, as far as I know, Jesus never did anything that was untoward with Mary, thankfully. However, I still believe that Mary was his downfall with all the mind games she was playing. Meanwhile, Peter was talking again.
"Andrew, Jesus is a man in appearance only. He is without sin. He has been tempted by Satan himself. I mean, remember what he told us. He was tempted worse than we could ever imagine for 40 days in the desert, and he never faltered. No, friends, I tell you the truth. Our Jesus cannot be defiled by anything or anyone in this world." "But Mary has been purified by the Master," Andrew reasoned. "Perhaps this makes her acceptable to him."
Peter replied, "Who knows, Andrew? Perhaps you are correct. But I believe even if Jesus purified Magdala when he cast those demons out, nonetheless Mary is still a human like the rest of us, and thus she will always carry Adam's stain on her. Yet the Master is different. Jesus is pure. He was born without sin. Always has been, always will be." "Ha! You hear that, Mary?" I was thinking to myself. "You could never be good enough for him." Meanwhile, silence reigned as we all pondered what would become of our little club now that Mary of Magdala was gaining more influence within our group and threatening to take Jesus away from us. It wasn't a pretty sight as I looked back at the scene then. Matthew was the first to break the awkward silence. "What you say makes sense, Peter.
I can't see our master, who is so pure of mind and body, accepting a union with a woman who was once possessed by demons, and who still carries the mark of Adam's sin upon her. Yet how can we be sure?"
"Why can't John ask him?" Andrew offered.
"What, me?" I resisted. "Come on, John," my brother James coaxed. "You know he loves you best. He tells you everything." "Not anymore," I snapped. "Now Mary's his confidant. But this is nothing new, because for a while it was Judas too, don't you all remember? Hey, and speaking of Judas, what's going on with that guy? Even though he's still with us, he hasn't been too engaged with our plans lately, has he?" Wow, looking back now, I guess I was correct in that assessment, huh? Matthew answered me softly. "Yes, my friends, I'm worried about Judas too. Maybe I should find out what's bothering him. Perhaps I'll sit beside him at the Passover dinner tonight and ask him."
"It won't help, Matthew," Peter reminded him. "Remember, Judas is a zealot. He wants Jesus to take power by force. But I get the feeling that's not going to happen." "Then what are we all doing here in Jerusalem?" Andrew asked. "Are we waiting for the Pharisees to come and arrest us? Did you see the performance in that temple today? Jesus driving out all those money changers and making everybody mad? If our master keeps insulting them, we'll have a problem. They'll have all our heads."
"Just let them come and try it," I grumbled, while my brother James got riled up as well.
"Be that as it may, brothers," Peter stopped us in our tracks. "Back to our problem. Is there anything else we can do to perhaps minimize Mary's influence?"
Well, Lazarus likes Mary," Matthew practically tittered. "Perhaps we could get those two to spend some more time together." Wow, looking back now, I kind of forgot about all that. If only Lazarus hadn't been such a bumbling fool and tried to play Mr. Cool by keeping a secret from Mary, he would have taken her off our hands way back then, and maybe things would have been different. Oh, you don't know that story yet, reader? Well, don't worry, we'll get to that too. Meanwhile, back to my vision.
"Really?" Andrew asked. "How do you know this, Matthew?"
"Haven't you guys seen the way Lazarus is around Magdala?" Matthew replied. "He's practically a bar mitzvah boy. All wide-eyed and ready to showcase his manhood."
"Yes, but Mary was there when Lazarus was raised back to life," Andrew added. "I think that was rather upsetting for her. So I don't see the two of them getting together." "Well, if nothing else, it can't hurt to include Lazarus more in our affairs," Peter concluded. "At least Lazarus might take up some of Mary's time and leave Jesus more with us. Then things can get back to normal. After all, if the Master really is not going to accept Mary's advances, surely she won't wait around forever, right?"
And with that, my sight snapped back to the present. Yet alas, my troubles today were only beginning. Well, that's the end of our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Now be sure to visit our website at temptationofjohn.com, where you can read the full text version of this chapter, get access to exclusive interactive media content only available online, and go behind the scenes with additional references about the Apostle John, Mary Magdalene, the Antichrist, the Book of Revelation, and much more. On our website, you'll find links to every podcast episode, and you can also join the Temptation of John Book Club. It's free to join, and you can get notified when new chapters are released, and even interact with the author. That's yours truly. Again, you'll find all this and more at temptationofjohn.com.